Welcome to another Friday session on IELTS Summit Academy Facebook group and the IELTS Success Summit YouTube channel. I want to welcome you here today. If you're watching on Facebook or YouTube, feel free to leave any comments if you want to just say hello or let me know where you're watching from. I'd be happy to know where you're coming from. So today we're going to be looking at the listening section. And so whether you're doing the general IELTS test or the academic IELTS exam, this lesson is for you. The listening section is the same for both. So all I want to do today is share my ultimate guide for the listening section. So we're going to get started right away. And I just want to give you, first of all, an overview of the format of the listening test. So in the listening section, and this is the first part of the exam that you'll face on test day, you have 30 minutes to complete the listening test. And the listening test has 4 sections and a total of 40 questions. And during these 40 questions, you'll have anywhere from 7 to 8 different question types. And in the IELTS listening section, you get 1 point for each correct answer. So the important thing is just to try and get as many answers correct as possible. And that's your main goal for the listening section. For example, if you're going for a band 7, you'll want to get 30 out of 40 correct. If you're going for a band 8, then you need to get 35 out of 40 correct. But your main goal is just to get as many correct as possible and to understand that you don't lose any marks or have any marks deducted for incorrect questions. So in these 4 sections, these 4 parts to the listening section, in part 1, which has 10 questions, each part has 10 questions. In part 1, you'll hear a conversation between 2 people, and they're trying to make some kind of arrangement. It might be travel arrangements or a hotel booking, maybe the delivery of a package, but it's going to be 2 people having an everyday conversation about making some kind of arrangement. And then in part 2, you'll hear a monologue, one person speaking, and it may be something similar to what you might hear on a talk radio station. And they'll be giving some information, maybe about a community event, a new building or a new program in a community, a library, an amusement park. It could be anything that's being described by one person. And then in part 3, you'll hear a group of people, 2 or 3 people, discussing a project that they're going to work on together. So this could be a group of university students. It could be some colleagues at work or some community members, and they're working on a project and organizing something together. And then in part 4, you'll hear a lecture. And this is probably the closest thing to an academic lecture you'll hear. It may be similar to something you would hear at university, but it's also important to be aware that this won't be overly academic, because in the listening section, all the topics are everyday topics. There's nothing that you need to have prior knowledge of, nothing that you will have needed to study beforehand. It's all everyday common topics that you will be quite familiar with. So those are the 4 parts, and each part has 10 questions. So some of these everyday topics that I'm referring to are things like education and technology. And by the way, those are probably the 2 most common topics that you'll face in the IELTS exam, education and technology. And this is true for the writing section as well as the reading and listening sections. And then other common topics are the environment or work, family, and health. So these are the kinds of everyday topics that I'm talking about. Again, they're not overly academic, and they are topics that you'll come across in your day-to-day life. And overall, there's basically four different types of questions. There's missing words questions where you have to fill in the gap with the word. And these could be in sentences, it could be in a paragraph, or even in a table. And then you have multiple choice questions. And there's two types of multiple choice questions. There's the regular type where you have to choose one answer from four options, or there may be one where you have to choose options from a list. And that's the other type of multiple choice. You could also have a map or a diagram or even a table, and you have to fill in the labels with, and you'll be given options to choose from, and you have to choose the best label for that map or diagram. And then you have matching information types of questions. So these are just some of the things that you can expect to face, the different types of questions when you're doing the listening section. And one of the best things that you can do is just become familiar with every type of question that you could possibly face in the IELTS exam. And the good news is, on my YouTube channel, I have a playlist that does include videos and instruction for every type of question that you might face in IELTS listening. So don't hesitate to subscribe to the channel. I'll place the link for that playlist in the comments, and I would encourage you to check out the other videos. There's videos for everything that you could possibly face in the IELTS exam, and don't hesitate to give this a like or to even share it with a friend who's also going through preparation for the IELTS exam. One of the most important skills that you'll need when it comes to the listening section is time management. Now, you can't control the length of the videos, the recordings. You can't slow them down. You can't control the speed. But where you can manage your time most effectively in the listening exam is when you're preparing and predicting for the answers that you're going to be looking for. So in order to do this, there's a really good strategy that you can use for the listening section. And this generally applies to every type of question that you'll face in the listening section. So the first thing that you do is you read each question and the instructions for each question very carefully. And then as you're reading these questions, you'll mark the keywords or underline or make little notes that will help you be prepared for what you're about to listen to, because you are given time to look at the questions before the recording starts. And you're only asked to look at about 5 questions on average at a time, because usually each set of 10 questions is divided up into 2 different question types. So you'll be given 30 seconds to look at the first 5 questions, and then you'll be given another 30 seconds or so to look at the next and prepare for the next 5 questions. So what's really important is that you take this time that you're given to read each question carefully and mark the keywords and make any notes beside the gaps that you have to fill or the lists that you have to choose from. One thing to remember in the listening section is that all the questions come in order. So as you listen for the answer to one question, as soon as you hear that, you begin to focus on the next question. And so you keep moving forward. And this is really the secret to the listening test, because sometimes you'll miss an answer. And if you do, that's no reason to panic. Remember, you just want to get as many correct out of 40 as possible. So always be focused on the answer you're waiting on, that you're on now, and the one that's coming next. Never worry about answers that have gone by, or you've missed, or you're unsure if you put in the correct answer. The important thing is to focus forward. At the end of each section, you're given time to check your answers. Now, this is an important tip when it comes to time management on the listening test. Don't ever check your answers or review your answers. There's nothing that you can really check, anyways. The only possible thing that you could check is spelling. But now is not the time to do it. And the time to do that is to realize that in the listening section, after you've completed the 30-minute test, you have time to transfer your answers from the notebook to the answer sheet. So while you're listening to the recordings, you're answering right in the notebook that you're given. So you don't answer directly on the answer sheet. And this notebook is also where you mark and underline and make notes, anything that's going to help you to answer questions. Because after the exam is finished and after you've transferred your answers to the answer sheet, the examiner and the marker are not going to look at your notebook. They're only concerned with the answer sheet. Matter of fact, the notebook is probably just going to end up in the garbage bin. So at the end, when you have this 10 minutes, this is the time, as you're transferring your answers, that you can use to check anything that you want to check, like spelling. So don't do any checking or reviewing during the course of the listening test. Okay, and this is the most important strategy. So read each question carefully, mark keywords. Remember that the questions come in order. Keep moving forward. Once you've answered a question, move immediately and focus on the next question. And don't worry about reviewing or checking your answers. So what I want to do is I just want to finish up this strategy on IELTS listening with just some tips on how to stay focused, because this is really the most important skill in the listening section. Stay focused during the 30 minutes. And the first thing that you can do is just to understand again that information is never repeated. This is why focusing on the question you're on and the next question is so important. Don't worry about past questions that have gone by, or questions that you've missed. So just stay focused and realize that you're going to hear each recording once, and once only. Nothing is ever repeated. And the second key to staying focused is to realize that it's not a good idea to panic or get anxious if you miss an answer. Once you've missed an answer, there's nothing you can do about it. And if you worry about what you've missed, this will take your focus away from the question that's coming. And if you don't panic, you'll avoid the problem of missing 2 or 3 questions in a row. Because if you worry about the question you've missed, it'll take your focus off the next question. And then you have a good chance of missing that one too. And then your anxiety builds up, and it's even easier to miss a third one. So keep moving forward. Remember, you don't have to get 40 out of 40 to get a good band score. If you need a good band score, like 7 or 7.5 to get into university, you're going to be able to do that even if you miss one or two questions. It's not the end of the world. It's only the end of the world if you allow that panic and anxiety to set in and you miss 3 or 4 questions in a row. So don't panic. You're still in good shape even if you miss a question. And the third tip that I just want to give you to stay focused is to be aware of distractions. For example, sometimes a speaker in the recording will make a mistake on purpose, will give the wrong information. And then what they'll do is they'll correct it. So you have to be listening for the correct answer, not the wrong answer that they said first. So these are the kinds of distractions that you'll face in the listening section. So the way that you would want to deal with this is kind of a contradiction, but it's so true for staying focused. First of all, you have to be patient and don't be distracted by the wrong answer. Wait for the correct answer. And then once you do hear the correct answer, write it down immediately and don't second guess it. Okay. So be patient, but as soon as you hear the correct answer, write it down and then move forward and focus on the next question. So here's the contradiction. Be patient, but when you hear the correct answer, act without delay. Okay. And then don't second guess yourself. Move forward and get the answer to the next question. I just want to add one more little thing about moving forward and what I was talking about in time management earlier. At the end, when I talked about not reviewing your answers, because you're given time to review your answers, what you want to do is to use that time to go to the next section. And that'll add almost a minute to your preparation time for the next section. So be sure to use your time wisely and stay focused, and you'll have success in the IELTS listening section. I hope you found this helpful. Again, I want to encourage you to subscribe to this channel. This is where you can find that playlist with every different question for the listening section. The link will be in the comments. You can also find other helpful videos for the listening section and every other section of the IELTS exam. And I want to wish you all the best as you continue to prepare for the IELTS exam and your future.